three layers actually come after that, because there's also this predominant thinking that a lot of, let's say, well-to-do financial homes per se still have a lot of dysfunctional families. So this is where the three other stools come, that a provider in a sense should also have a mental clarity of sorts, which guides the relationships towards clarity. He should be a visionary of sorts, that this is the vision that we are kind of aiming for to bring forth in the world, and very strong and fast decision making. So now, a very important thing is, if you think that money is the only thing which person gets attracted to, please drop this thinking, because then you'll be just another man who has replaced the previous one, because you have more money right now. There would be also a day when another man walks in with more money and can take your place easily. But if you're like building it on the right foundations, no one can replace your mental clarity and emotional safety. And that's a vision of sorts if you have worked on those four pillars per se. Yo guys, namaskaram. So today I wanted to talk about providers in general. One of you had commented that what a provider basically means. So I wanted to kind of give some context around it and maybe help one develop an understanding of sorts. Like kind of also tackle the cliches that chase money and all that, which is kind of being sold in the name of alphaness per se. So first things first, I think we have been sold this idea that if you provide financially, you'll be respected. But in reality, that's the fastest way to get replaced. So you have seen a lot of cases wherein a lot of partners kind of cheat just because of, let's say, financial needs predominantly, or there could be other emotional needs and things like that. So we have to understand it from a holistic perspective, that a provider is not someone who just brings money to the table. A true provider, in its essence, provides stability to the relationship, a sense of direction as to where we are heading in life, and protection. Now, protection on fundamentally four levels. Of course, financially slash materially, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So, first things first, we should get straight that it's not about the money, it's about a certain type of mindset, because anyone can kind of earn if you are able to understand this. I'm assuming you're reasonably well and have your basic faculties functioning, like you have a healthy mind, a healthy body of sorts. But we have to go a layer deeper. A provider is someone who builds a safe, let's say, psychological space of sorts in a very chaotic world. To take the example of a home, like, we battle so many challenges in the world that we need a peaceful home. You might have heard people saying this. Why are they saying so? So that we can be free and be ourselves in a space that's totally ours. And that's the same expectation which, let's say, your partner also does have when he or she is kind of coming back, let's say, to the home. So I'm making this video more from a male perspective, because I think to be a female, firstly, I don't have that gender context. So just from that perspective, and what I think certain two cents could be around this. So secondly, I feel that a provider kind of mm, makes their partner feel anchored in a stable base of sorts, and like not very anxious that she has to kind of just take decisions, respond to the world, and also on the internal sense of sorts. Sometimes people just want to be chill and let someone else lead the direction of, let's say, a boat or sorts. And there's also one important thing. Let's say if there is a space for conflict, one should not run from it, but genuinely face that conflict and handle it. Like, it's the classic fight or flight response. So one should obviously sort things, because conflict in the short term brings clarity for the long term. And then, like, one does not outsource responsibility. So of course, after a certain point, like, there are a lot of marriage counselors, relationship counselors, and things like that. But that fundamentally means that the ship has sailed so far away that now to bring it back ashore, it requires some external help of sorts. Isn't it better that fundamentally all these needs are kind of sorted? The predominant point here is, don't give your responsibility to someone else, like absorb it, absorb the pressure, the stress that comes from it. And people think that those who bring money kind of is quote unquote provider, but money without presence is empty. Like, you can pay the bills and still have your partner feel lonely, you can buy gifts and still have zero influence in your own home. So basically, now kind of coming to the next point, I wanted to delve in a step by step manner. Firstly, what should we kind of aim for? So firstly, as I mentioned, that there are like four aspects to this whole provider thing: the mental aspect, the emotional aspect, the spiritual aspect, and the material slash financial aspect. Consider these like the four legs of a table or a stool of sorts. Materially, you have to be very, let's say, sorted and strengthened, because the world unfortunately runs on money. So if you don't have money, there would always be that constant stress and anxiety that what if something might go bad, and there would be a lot of conflict. So first thing is handling top notch finances, like earning a lot. And this helps you move from, let's say, a scarcity mindset to that of an abundance mindset, wherein at least you don't have to worry about, let's say, security, resources, or if there are certain situations that are being hampered, let's say, in your current environment, you can change your environment. Now, a layer, three layers actually come after that, because there's also this predominant thinking that a lot of, let's say, well-to-do financial homes per se still have a lot of dysfunctional families. So this is where the three other stools come. That a provider, in a sense, should also have a mental clarity of sorts, which guides the relationships towards clarity. He should be a visionary of sorts, that this is the vision that we are kind of aiming for to bring forth in the world. And very strong and fast decision making. So I think the faster you make decisions, the better it is, because then you can just learn faster, pivot from your mistakes. Don't keep on waiting for decisions. The third thing is emotionally how we are providing. So basically, I think, in my understanding, an emotional developing an emotional sense requires that there's a space of sorts for feelings, wherein all the feelings are kind of sorted out, and you're like a pillar of sorts, wherein, like, the waves are coming, but it doesn't affect you. So much more like a calming storm effect, and you don't collapse. And then I think, the most important is being a spiritual provider. Now, this does not mean uh, going into, let's say, practices or things like that. Of course, that can be a good thing, but I think a more fundamental approach would be keeping the relationship grounded in values, genuine values, maybe certain principles, having let's say, code of sorts, and one that just does not focuses on your individual growth, but of like both the parties involved. So in I think, relationships that are successful, or at least the ones that I have seen, like all these four aspects are kind of taken care of. Now, a very important thing is to spot what a fake provider of sorts is. So a person who kind of uses control and dominance, uh, because he or she is so insecure, is kind of a fake. And I think, providing in general does not mean controlling. A true provider kind of creates freedom, not cages. So a common pattern is, like, they use money or dominance to manipulate, whereas a real one kind of use stability and strength to empower one another, empower their partners of sort. And then there should be an environment of sorts where there's a attitude of problem solving, not creating more problems, but genuinely like solving problems at the root as a couple. And then coming to how this kind of pivots towards a healthy relationship is like, even if, let's say, quote unquote, your roles differ, I think, both of you kind of should bring something to the table. If one brings money, then the other one can bring emotional regulation of sorts. If one builds the mission, the other guards the home energy to kind of keep it very positive, not very anxious of sorts. Now this does not mean that a female kind of is in the home always and kind of not working, not that. More from an energy perspective, that there's not a sense of anxiety when one kind of enters home, because the reason males cheat, right, is they don't feel valued or respected by their female partners in home. So I think that should be taken care of in a mutually balanced way. So if one kind of handles the outside world, the other kind of holds the inside world together. It's like a partnership of sorts. Both are powerful and both are needed. It's not a 50-50 all the time, but 100 effort in different lanes going towards a similar trajectory of sorts. And very important, a real provider does not have to speak through words, their actions speak. Through their actions they create a presence of sorts, and then you might have seen that around certain people you feel secure, maybe seen to some extent, safe and guided around them. They always know where we are kind of going. So that's not kind of money, that's an emotional structure of sorts which one has worked towards to in life. And now a very important thing, a very important conception is, like, I think this is more predominant from a male perspective, that if we want to provide, we think of ourselves as a savior. Don't mistake a provider for being like a martyr of sorts, that you have to carry this whole weight of baggage and trauma and whatnot. You don't need to fix someone who refuses to grow and refuses to sort their own shit. I think ideally a relationship should be one, or if you're entering, is wherein there are, like, less holes in your personality, and also the other person also has less holes in his or her personality, and then you're kind of coming together to build something, create something valuable for the world. You provide by leading through example, not by over functioning or overburdening yourself with wounds and stresses that are really not needed in your life. If someone uses, again, money or emotional manipulation of sorts, then that's kind of filling an insecurity within them. That's genuinely not providing to the relationship. That's, I think, ego in disguise. A person, true provider, kind of empowers, not wanting to control. Now, a very important thing is, if you think that money is the only thing which person gets attracted to, please drop this thinking, because then you'll be just another man who has replaced the previous one, because you have more money right now. There would be also a day when another man walks in with more money and can take your place easily. But if you're like building it on the right foundations, no one can replace your mental clarity and emotional safety. That's a vision of sorts, if you have worked on those four pillars per se. Now there's also very one important thing, as whenever people get into relationships, like after the initial, let's say, honeymoon period of sorts, there comes a pattern of ghosting, that people either ghost when it becomes hard, or they don't want to kind of sort the conflict there head on. So you don't ghost, that's where you walk differently. Like, you don't make your partner walk on, let's say, eggshells. You constantly take ownership of everything. If you have committed to, let's say, relationship, take ownership of everything through your words, maybe energy of sorts, and the role which one needs to kind of work towards to in that context. Now there's also one thing, because I think our self-esteem is so tied to external validation, that we always look for validation, let's say praise of sorts, for even doing the bare minimum. If I have done something, I should be respected and things like that. I think developing a metric of sorts, wherein even if you're not externally validated of sorts, let's say even by your partner, it doesn't impact you. I think genuinely kind of working on getting your own respect, that's the most important thing, because if you self respect yourself, then there wouldn't be this constant urge to expect praise from, let's say, your loved one and things like that. And then provide peace, provide a sense of direction, and most importantly, enjoy by providing yourself fully. You don't have to be perfect in anything, you just have to be present and have that willingness to, I think, grow on a certain level. And that comes from by being clear as to who you are as a person and being deeply grounded in your values. We don't have this responsibility of fixing people, we just have to hold a certain sense of space so that they can grow in all levels, and this goes for both the people. And most importantly, uh, if you feel that the relationship is kind of not working, there are issues and things like that, have the courage to walk away. Don't be a simp, value your own words. If you disappear, the other person should feel the weight of your absence as to what she or he have lost. That's how you know that you were a genuine provider at every level, both for yourself, and it also contributes to the long term well-being of both yourself and your partner as well. Even if things don't work out, it's fine. Like, there are 8 billion people, we'll definitely find one of them at least. And most importantly, I think this comes from Stoicism, wherein I think Marcus Aurelius said this, that in order to master the world, you should first master your own self. Respect comes from who you are, not just what you have, let's say, materially speaking. It talks a lot about character, about integrity, about your values. Like, and a lot of things kind of go into this. So that's a high level, I think, insight on what my understanding of being a provider is. But yeah, I think finally I would just like to end this with this one thing that I had written, that a provider is like not someone who pays the bill, someone who pays attention, leads with clarity, and holds the line when life kind of breaks you down. And if all you offer is money, you're just a transaction. But let's say if you offer safety, uh, a character of sorts, of wisdom, and kind of a direction to lead that relationship, you kind of become a legacy. As I had mentioned in my last video, we are not here to impress people but build a legacy for ourselves. So yeah, this is what I wanted to share. Anyhow, this is Devishish Pindra from Debu Ki Dastak signing off. Cheers. Bye.